A millionaire visits the cemetery to honor his late wife and daughter, where he finds a girl crying near a tombstone. He approaches her and does this. Daniel was a successful businessman, known for his dedication and stubbornness in everything he did. Over the years, he built an empire based on hard work and strategic decisions, becoming a respected and admired figure. However, behind this image of strength and control, there was an irreparable loss that silently shaped his life. A few years ago, a car accident took the lives of his wife and daughter, deeply shaking his foundation. Unable to face the pain, he threw himself even more into his work, turning his businesses into a refuge to escape the emptiness that consumed him. He became an increasingly reserved and distant person, withdrawing from friends and even from himself, occupying every minute with tasks and goals that kept his mind busy. Despite this, there was something he never abandoned, the habit of regularly visiting the cemetery. He would walk among the tombstones in silence, as if searching in that space of memories and silence for some trace of the connection with those he loved so much. Daniel was in the conference room of his company, surrounded by reports and charts that seemed to fill every corner. He glanced at the clock, sighed, and closed the folder in front of him. He abruptly stood up and walked to his office, where Donna, his secretary, was typing something on her computer. "Donna, I'm leaving early today," Daniel said, adjusting his wristwatch. "I need to take care of some personal matters." Donna looked up, surprised, but nodded promptly. "All right, sir. Any meetings that need rescheduling or anything urgent that needs attention?" "No, don't worry about that," he replied in a tone trying to sound casual. "Actually, I won't be back today. I was thinking of stopping by the flower shop and then the cemetery. I'm going to bring flowers for my wife and daughter." "Of course, sir," Donna said with a small smile, though it was impossible not to notice the seriousness on her face. "If you need anything, I'll be available." Daniel thanked her with a slight nod of his head and left the office, walking with firm steps, but his mind far from the office. He got into the car and drove slowly to a small flower shop he had been frequenting for years. There, he carefully selected a bouquet of white lilies, his wife's favorite flowers, and some daisies that always reminded him of his daughter. With the flowers on the passenger seat, Daniel headed to the cemetery, parking in a shaded corner. Upon entering, he discreetly greeted the caretaker, who knew him from his frequent visits, and walked down the familiar path. When he reached the grave, he knelt, placed the flowers gently, and stood there motionless while the soft wind blew around him. This was his moment of silence, something he did to reconnect, even if in an imaginary way, with those he loved so much. In the middle of his thoughts, a distant sound broke the tranquility. It was a muffled cry, almost whispered, but enough to catch his attention. He looked around, trying to locate the source. After hesitating for a moment, he stood up and walked slowly, guided by the sound. Turning a corner between the tombstones, he saw a girl, no older than 12, kneeling in front of a simple grave. Her small hands covered her face as tears silently streamed down. Daniel stopped, careful not to scare her. After a few seconds, he approached with soft steps. "Hello," Daniel said in a low, hesitant voice as he stopped a few steps from the girl. "Is everything all right? Sorry to bother you, but I heard you crying." The girl slowly raised her face, her red eyes and tear-streaked cheeks. She seemed surprised to see him there, but didn't immediately speak, simply wiping her eyes with her coat sleeve, trying to compose herself. "Sorry," she said, her voice weak. "I didn't mean to disturb anyone." "You're not disturbing anyone," Daniel said, maintaining a calm tone. "I was just worried. You seem really sad." The girl remained silent for a few seconds, looking at her hands. I was just thinking about my mom," she replied hesitantly, as if afraid to open up. "She used to say that coming here was beautiful, but now she's here." Daniel felt a pang in his chest. The simplicity with which the girl spoke about the situation was disarming, and he couldn't help but remember his own daughter. He looked at the grave in front of her. It was modest but well kept, with some flowers already wilting in a vase beside it. "Is this your mum?" Daniel asked carefully, tilting his head slightly. The girl nodded, her eyes filling with tears again. "She passed away recently. I always come here, but today I couldn't bring any flowers." Daniel knelt a little lower, trying to get on her level. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said sincerely. "I know how that feels. I also come here to visit my wife and daughter." The girl looked at him, surprised. "You lost them?" Daniel took a deep breath, nodding. "Yes, a few years ago. I think coming here helps me feel like I'm still close to them in some way. Maybe you feel the same about your mom." The girl slowly nodded, agreeing. "I do, but it's so hard. She always said I didn't have to worry about anything. Now it feels like everything's different." Daniel observed her face, so young yet so full of sadness. She reminded him of his daughter, not just by age but by the way she spoke, as if she carried more weight than she should. Without thinking too much, he tried to offer some comfort. "Look," he said gently, "if you want, I can take you to a flower shop nearby to buy flowers for your mum. It'll be on me, of course." The girl stared at him, surprised, and soon her expression shifted to a mix of curiosity and caution. I don't know. My dad always says not to go with people I don't know," she replied with straightforward honesty. Daniel nodded, understanding. "Your dad is right," he said, "but I just want to help. I noticed you care a lot about your mum, and I thought this might be a way for you to feel a little better. But if you don't want to, that's fine. I don't want to make you uncomfortable." She was silent for a few seconds, her gaze alternating between him and the grave. Finally, she took a deep breath. "You seem like a good person," she said hesitantly, "and I think my mum would be happy if I brought flowers for her. So, I think we can go." Daniel smiled sincerely. "I promise it'll be quick, and then I'll bring you right back here," he said, stepping back as if to reinforce that she was in control of the decision. The girl slowly stood up, still holding her backpack like a shield. "All right," she said. She finally relaxed a little, and the two of them started walking toward the exit of the cemetery. Daniel adjusted his pace to match hers, walking slowly, respecting the silence she kept as she walked beside him. In the car, Daniel opened the door for her and waited for her to fasten her seatbelt before starting the engine. "There's a flower shop I know well. I think we'll find something nice for your mom there," he said, trying to keep the conversation light. Daniel drove calmly, paying attention to the girl beside him. She looked out the window, seemingly lost in thought, but he noticed the tension in her body. He decided to break the silence to make her feel more at ease. "Since we're going together, I think it'd be good to introduce ourselves, don't you think?" he said, looking at the road. "My name is Daniel." She glanced at him quickly, as if deciding whether or not to respond. After a moment, she said, "I'm Amanda." Daniel smiled. "That's a beautiful name, Amanda. You know, my daughter's name was Carol. She loved flowers, too." Amanda seemed interested. "She liked flowers?" "Yes," Daniel replied, his voice softening a little. "Carol always chose daisies when we went to the flower shop. She said they were cheerful like her." Amanda was quiet for a few seconds before speaking. "My mom liked lilies. She said they were delicate and strong at the same time. Now I try to bring lilies whenever I can, but it's not always possible." Daniel noticed a touch of sadness in her voice. "I can imagine that's hard, but just the fact that you're there with her means a lot." She nodded slowly, agreeing. "I think so, but it's strange. Since she passed, everything changed. My dad works all the time, he's hardly home, and when he is, he looks so tired. He tries to take care of me, but It's like he doesn't know how. Daniel felt a pang in his heart. Amanda's words sounded painfully familiar. "Your dad must be doing the best he can," he said gently. "Sometimes, when we lose someone, it's hard to find our way back." "I know," she replied, looking at him. "He loves me, I know he does. But it's hard when he's not around. Sometimes it feels like I'm all alone." Daniel wanted to say something, but stayed silent for a moment, trying to find the right words. "You know, Amanda, you're very brave. I can tell by the way you talk. Your mom would be proud of you." Amanda stayed silent, but there was something in her eyes, a mix of sadness and gratitude that said more than words. As they talked, they arrived at the flower shop. Daniel parked the car and opened the door for her. "Here we are. Let's choose something beautiful for your mom." Amanda walked into the flower shop with hesitant steps, but her eyes quickly lit up as she saw the shelves full of flowers. She walked between the arrangements, stopping in front of a pot of white lilies. "I think these would be perfect," she said, looking at Daniel. "They're beautiful," he agreed, signaling to the attendant to prepare the bouquet. "I think your mom will love them." After a few minutes, with the bouquet in hand, they returned to the car and headed back to the cemetery. During the drive back, Amanda shared more about her life. She talked about school, about the friends who supported her at first, but now seemed to not understand her pain. She told him about weekends spent alone and how she tried to help her dad at home, even though she didn't really know what to do. Daniel listened attentively, impressed by her maturity. He felt a growing connection, as if that conversation was also a form of healing for him. When they arrived at the cemetery, Amanda took the flowers to her mother's grave. Daniel watched her as she arranged the bouquet carefully and whispered a few words to her mum. He didn't hear what she said, but he could see the emotion in her gestures. After a few minutes, Amanda stood up and turned to him. "Thank you, Mr. Daniel," she said with a shy smile. "You were very kind to me today, and thank you for the flowers. My mom would have liked them." Daniel gave a small smile. "You don't have to thank me, Amanda. It was good for me too. You know, helping someone is sometimes the best way to help ourselves." He hesitated for a moment before continuing. "If you or your dad ever need anything, let me know. I'd be happy to help." Amanda shook her head, politely refusing. "My dad doesn't like to accept help. He says we have to figure things out on our own, but thank you anyway." Daniel respected her answer and stepped back. "All right, but if you change your mind, you can count on me." With a final smile, Amanda waved and walked away, heading home while Daniel stayed still for a moment, watching her go. He felt something different inside him, a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. As simple as the meeting had been, there was something transformative about that gesture. He finally turned around, walking back to the car, certain that he wouldn't be able to get that little girl out of his mind anytime soon. In the following days, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about Amanda. There was something about her that reminded him deeply of Carol, his daughter. It wasn't just her age or appearance, but the way she spoke, the precocious maturity, and even her gestures. He began to think that maybe that connection wasn't by chance. Maybe, he thought, it was a sign that he should do something for her and her father. One morning, while reviewing documents in his office, Daniel called Donna, his secretary, and asked her to come in. "Donna," Daniel said, closing the folder in front of him with a serious tone, "I need your help with something confidential." Donna adjusted her glasses. "Of course, Mr. Daniel, what do you need?" Daniel crossed his fingers on the table, taking a deep breath. "I want you to investigate a person, actually, two people, a girl named Amanda and her father. All I know is that she's between 10 and 12 years old. She lost her mother recently, and she lives only with her dad, who works a lot. I don't have more concrete information." Donna tilted her head slightly, a trace of concern in her expression. I understand, sir, but if I may say, that's very limited information. It could make the investigation difficult. Do you have anything else? An address, a full name, any additional details? Daniel shook his head, seeming a little uncomfortable. Unfortunately, no. I know it's not ideal and I apologize for that, but it's all I have. Her father seems to work a lot, in some job that demands a lot from him. Maybe that's a clue to get started. Donna maintained a professional demeanor, but didn't hide her thoughtful expression. I understand, sir. It will be a challenge, but I'll do my best to find something. It may take some time, given the limited information. Daniel nodded, seeming relieved that she hadn't refused the request. I understand, Donna. Take as long as you need. Just keep everything about this completely confidential. Certainly, sir, Donna said firmly. Everything we uncover will be kept confidential. Daniel watched her for a moment, his expression softening. Thank you. And if you need any resources or extra support to make the investigation easier, don't hesitate to ask. I'll let you know, Donna responded, getting ready to leave. Donna gave a respectful nod before exiting the room. As the door closed, Daniel stayed silent, reflecting on how that small meeting in the cemetery had reignited something in his life he thought was lost forever. Weeks later, Donna walked to Daniel's office door with firm steps, a folder in hand and a determined expression. She stopped for a moment to knock softly. Mr. Daniel, excuse me. May I come in? On the other side, Daniel's voice sounded calm but attentive. Come in, Donna. She carefully opened the door, stepped in, and closed it silently before heading to his desk. Good morning, Mr. Daniel, she said in a professional but polite tone. I have news about that investigation you requested. Daniel looked up from the document he was reviewing, immediately interested. Good morning, Donna. I'm glad to hear that. Please have a seat and tell me what you found. Donna sat in the chair in front of the desk and placed the folder on it, adjusting it carefully. It was a bit of a challenge, considering the limited information we had, but I managed to put together a complete picture of Amanda and her father. Great job, Daniel said, leaning slightly forward. I'm listening. She opened the folder and began flipping through the documents carefully. Amanda lives with her father, Matthew, in a small house in a modest neighborhood. Their financial situation is very tight. Matthew works at a small sawmill. It's a very physically demanding job with long hours, and his pay is low. This means he spends most of his time away from home, leaving Amanda alone for many hours. Daniel stayed silent, absorbing the information while Donna continued. From what I managed to gather, Amanda's a very independent girl for her age. She helps out at home as best as she can and does well at school, but she often spends time alone. Her father, despite working hard, seems physically and emotionally exhausted. Also, the sawmill where he works is facing serious financial difficulties. There's a real risk of bankruptcy, which would leave Matthew without a job and put their situation in an even more critical state. Daniel let out a deep sigh, closing his eyes for a moment. That's exactly what I needed to know, he said, thoughtful but with a tone of gratitude. Donna watched him for a moment before speaking again. I also managed to gather some additional personal information in case it's useful for you. Matthew is an honest and hard-working man, but he seems very isolated since the loss of his wife. The sawmill is practically his only connection outside of home. Daniel nodded slowly, letting the weight of the information settle in. After a moment, he looked at Donna with a slight smile. You did an excellent job, Donna. I know it was difficult with so few details, but you managed to gather exactly what I needed. Congratulations. Donna smiled, a mix of pride and professionalism in her expression. Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I'm glad the information is useful. Daniel adjusted the papers in the folder and closed it. Donna, your efficiency never disappoints me. Once again, thank you. You may return to work for now, but if I need anything else, I'll call you." "Certainly, sir," Donna said, standing up and adjusting the documents she had with her. "I'll be at your disposal." She left the room, leaving Daniel alone with the documents. He sat for a few minutes in silence, looking at the folder on the table. Amanda and Matthew's story deeply moved him, and now more than ever, he was determined to help. He knew he needed to do something meaningful to change their fate. A few days later, Daniel called Donna into his office again. She entered with her clipboard in hand and her impeccable posture, as always. "Mr. Daniel, you asked to see me?" she asked politely. "Yes, Donna, please have a seat," he said, gesturing to the chair in front of his desk. "I need to discuss something important." Donna settled in, adjusting the clipboard on her lap as she waited for him to begin. Daniel took a deep breath, as if searching for the right words. "I want you to know the reason behind the request I made about investigating Amanda and her father." She stayed attentive, leaning slightly forward. "I'm listening, sir." "A few weeks ago, I went to the cemetery, as I do regularly," Daniel said, his gaze distant for a moment. "While I was there, I heard crying. It was Amanda, a girl sitting in front of her mother's grave. She was completely alone and seemed so lost. I approached her and we started talking." Donna gave a small nod, encouraging him to continue. "She told me she lost her mom recently and that she lives with her dad, who works a lot and has little time for her. There was something in her that really moved me, something that reminded me of my daughter. It wasn't just the age or the way she spoke, but how she faced everything with such courage." "She's a special girl, Donna," he said, his voice softening. Donna watched him with a compassionate look. "I understand, sir. It seems like that encounter made a big impact on you." Daniel nodded slowly. "It did. Since then, I haven't been able to stop thinking about her and the situation they're facing. After everything you've found out about their lives, I know I have to do something. It's not just about wanting to help, it's about feeling that it's the right thing to do." "I understand, Mr. Daniel," Donna said with an encouraging tone. "And how do you plan to help them?" Daniel straightened up in his chair, his expression becoming more resolute. "I want to improve their lives without hurting her father's pride. I don't want him to feel like he's receiving charity or that he's being diminished in any way. So I've been thinking of this solution, buying the sawmill where he works." Donna raised her eyebrows, surprised, but didn't interrupt. "If I acquire the company, I can improve working conditions for him and everyone else. I want to raise salaries and reduce working hours. This will allow him to spend more time with Amanda and at the same time ease their financial pressure. It will be a way to help them indirectly and in the long term." Donna remained silent for a moment, absorbing the plan. "It's a noble idea, sir, and it makes sense. But have you considered the process? It will be delicate, given the company's current financial state." Daniel nodded. "Yes, I know the sawmill situation is complicated, but that doesn't discourage me. I want you to begin the acquisition process, do the necessary consultations, and assess how we can make the purchase. I want this done with complete discretion." Donna adjusted her posture, already taking notes. "Understood, Mr. Daniel. I'll begin the procedures right away and keep you informed of the progress." Daniel smiled faintly, relieved. "Thank you, Donna. I knew I could count on you. This project is very important to me." She stood up with a respectful nod. "I'll do my best to ensure everything goes as you wish. Excuse me." As Donna left the room, Daniel felt a weight lift from his heart. The plan was in motion, and he finally felt that he was doing something meaningful to help Amanda and Matthew, and perhaps in some way, starting to fill the void he had carried for so long. But he knew there was still much to be done. In the following months, Donna worked tirelessly to coordinate the acquisition of the sawmill. She kept Daniel informed at every stage, always with discretion, as he had requested. First, Donna conducted a thorough analysis of the company's finances, confirming that the situation was indeed critical. The sawmill was on the brink of bankruptcy, with accumulated debts and obsolete equipment, making the purchase proposal a necessary rescue for the current owners. "Mr. Daniel," Donna said in one of the meetings, presenting the reports, "the purchase is viable, but it will require a significant investment to modernize the operations. However, in the long run, it could become a profitable company." "Money isn't the issue," Daniel replied firmly. "I want the changes to be implemented as soon as we take control. Better salaries, shorter hours, and better working conditions for everyone. That's the priority." "Understood, sir," Donna said, taking note of the details. After months of negotiations, the acquisition was completed. Daniel became the official owner of the sawmill, but chose to keep his name confidential to avoid drawing attention. He immediately approved the promised changes: higher salaries, more flexible hours, and new equipment to make work easier. When Matthew learned about the changes, he was incredulous, but accepted the good news with gratitude, relieved that he could finally spend more time with Amanda. A few weeks later, Daniel decided to visit the cemetery again. It was a sunny afternoon, the wind gently blowing between the tombstones. He walked to the place where he used to stand, in front of his wife and daughter's graves, but to his surprise, he saw Amanda in the distance, near her mother's grave. This time, she wasn't crying. On the contrary, her face was peaceful, almost happy. Daniel approached slowly, just like the first time, and called out to her softly, "Amanda." She turned around, her face illuminated by a smile as she recognized him. "Mr. Daniel, what a surprise to see you here." Daniel smiled back. "I could say the same. How are you?" "Much better," she said excitedly. "Everything's changed, you know. My dad now works less and earns more. He can spend more time with me at home. We even started watching movies together and cooking on the weekends. It's been so long since it was like that." Daniel felt his heart warm at her words. "I'm so happy to hear that, Amanda. You and your dad deserve this happiness." She nodded, looking at her mother's grave. "I wish she could see how things are better. I know she'd be proud of my dad and how he's trying. And I also want to thank whoever made this happen. I have no idea who it was, but I think they're a really good person." Daniel kept smiling, feeling a mix of satisfaction and melancholy. He wanted to tell her, but he knew that anonymity was important to have the right impact. "I'm sure your mom knows," he said softly, "and she must be very proud of you too, Amanda. You're an amazing girl." She looked at him, a little emotional, but with a sincere smile. "Thank you, Mr. Daniel, and thank you for being so kind to me from the very beginning." And they chatted for a few more minutes, talking about simple things: Amanda's school, her dad's new work hours, and how life felt lighter. Finally, Amanda said she needed to go home, bidding him goodbye with a wave. Daniel stayed still, watching her walk away, feeling more at peace than he had in years. He turned back to his wife and daughter's grave, looking at their names engraved in the stone with a light smile. "You know," he whispered as if speaking to them, "I think I'm starting to find a purpose again. Maybe I'll never get over losing you both, but helping people like Amanda, it makes me feel like I can still do something good." With these words, he left the cemetery, his heart lighter than it had been in years. He knew this wasn't just a change for Amanda and Matthew, but for himself as well. By helping them, Daniel found a way to reconnect with what he had lost, and in some ways, start living again. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.